Good? Okay. So we began Torah Samech, and it was a very beautiful, very mystical beginning. We learned about this beautiful field where these beautiful trees grow and beautiful grass. Rav Nachman says that the eye can't imagine it. Notice he says the eye, not eyes. Why is that? Because according to the Zohar, in the future, there's going to be one eye of providence. As opposed to now, we have both eyes working, meaning Chesed and Gevurah. In the future, only the eye of Rachamim, the mind's eye. When you see the little... So there's like a real thing with that. Yes. And in the end, this is the only eye that will be seen. And this eye only perceives unity, oneness, the reality behind everything. So we explained that on this field there are many souls. And these souls have clothing. And the amount of Torah they learn and the mitzvot that they do is corresponding to the quality of clothing that they have on this field. And this clothing allows them to perceive godliness, unity, oneness. However, there are souls which are hovering on the outside of this field. And they're naked. Why are they naked? For one of two reasons. Either they do not have Torah and mitzvot, and therefore they have no clothing, and they can't be on the field because the field is where the Shekhinah rests, and they can't perceive it because it would damage them. Or because they have decided to leave the field in order to help another soul to come into the field. For one of these two reasons. We learn that where is the majority of these souls who do not have clothing or bodies come from, and it's from wasted seed. We said that every time a person wastes seed, he has millions of semen in that seed. And what happens there? Why is it such a big deal? Okay, it's a sore. Everything is a sore. So why should this be so special? It's worse than killing somebody. So the Arizal says because every one of the sperm which is in that semen, it is given birth to, but you don't see it. So where is it? And the answer is it becomes a spiritual entity with no physical body. And everything that lives needs rectification. And it's almost impossible for something to rectify without a body. So now you have trillions of these, so to speak, soul entities in the world, and you can't see them. The Gemara and Kabbalah explain you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't be able to function if you saw how many living entities they were that don't have physical bodies. You wouldn't be able to move. It would be too overwhelming for you. However, animals and things like this are able to perceive them, and that's why you see sometimes they get really spooked.
The donkey about the donkey Bilam.
Exactly. Just like the story in Bilam this week, in this week's Torah portion, where he was able to perceive
They always see it?
Yeah, a lot of times they see it. So, who rectifies these people? How do they end up getting rectification? And the answer is the master of the field. There's something called the master of the field. He is above the field, and everything that's on the field gets nourished from him. And he draws from the high wells called Chokhmah. He draws down godly wisdom, and through that he nourishes everything that's on the field. We said the trees are the tzaddikim, the grass are the Talmidei Chachamim, and everything else in the field are the simple Jews who do mitzvot and they keep Torah, but they're all in the field, all drinking from the Shekhinah. And they all get it from the master of the field. The master of the field is busy trying to rectify these people. There's a story of the Baal Shem Tov that he went to a certain town, and when he went to this town, he started to become unusually sad. He started to feel a very heavy depression way over him, and he didn't know why, where it came from. All of a sudden, he started asking people around him in the city that if anybody comes to this town as a visitor, make sure they come to me. They found out that in reality, the Baal Shem Tov had felt because he is a master of the field, so to speak, that there were these unrectified souls that had been there for 300 years, and they hadn't been rectified for 300 years. And because he saw how intensely was their rectification, he saw how intense their rectification, what it needed to be and what needed to happen for them to come back, that they were these Jews who needed this, he started to become very, very sad. And you can imagine the Baal Shem Tov, who was one of the greatest tzaddikim who ever lived, who had pure emunah, who gave birth to Hasidic masters like the Rav Nachman that we learned from, the Baal Tanya, X, Y, and Z. For him to become so sad and overwhelmed, it must have been very, very serious. He told his followers afterwards that he realized, why did he become sad? Because he realized the only way that these souls that needed rectification for the past 300 years would get it is if he passed away. And we learned that there's such a thing as people only reaching tikkun when very great tzaddikim pass away. Ultimately, he got the efforts of the people who were visiting the town. Apparently they were connected to these souls, and that's why he asked to see them. And they were able to accomplish these rectifications. Part of the reason why Rav Nachman was so makpid that his students come to him on Rosh Hashanah, he used to say that there were tikkunim, that there were rectifications he could do on Rosh Hashanah that he couldn't do the rest of the year. Now we think it's just for us. In truth, Rav Nachman at the end of his life, he used to say that he was very, very, very concerned with and busy with rectifying these souls that don't have bodies. As opposed to most tzaddikim who are busy trying just to help out the Jewish people who are alive now, he was also helping them, but he said that it was not close to as difficult as it was to rectify those souls, but he knew that those souls needed to be rectified, and this is one of the big reasons for Tikkun Klali. Because Rav Nachman promised that if you said Tikkun Klali on the day that you weigh seed, you don't have all of these third bodies.
Or seed comes out of it.
Whatever it is.
Wow, what's Tikkun Klali?
He for years he was hinting to the fact that he had a teaching that was a very deep teaching that would be able to have very great rectification for you, and only later on in his life did he actually tell people what it was. And he put together 10 Tehillim, which are, there's 10 types of song within Tehillim. Each one of these 10 types of song rectifies another part of the spiritual body. And all 10 together, he says, rectifies everything when it comes to the bread. So if you say this on the day that you weigh seed and you go to the mikveh, he promises that you're going to be good.
What if he's been doing it for 30 years of his life?
He promises that every single time that you do it, if you go to the mikveh and you say Tikkun Klali, you're okay.
Why haven't you done it?
Doesn't mean that you should intend to do so, because the Gemara says that if you intend to do tshuva through your actions, you don't have tshuva. But he says you slip. He says it's the most difficult test that we all have. And he wanted to make sure, because he saw the heavy weight that comes down from errors in this area, that a person is able to continually grow and not be weighed down. This is what he said. He said, in the field, you have all of these souls, right? Now, we discussed the fact that the perfection of your soul is the perfection of your tefillah. So what is the master of the field busy trying to help everybody rectify? It's their prayer. Because when a person's prayer is perfect, it means their soul is completely rectified. And this is the reason why we said that Rav Nachman was busy trying to get everybody to pray with fire, to pray with meaning, with concentration. He was trying to get you to rectify your prayer, because he knew that this is the rectification of your soul. We know, according to the Baal Shem Tov, that Noah, who was the first tzaddik, so to speak, he spent his whole life building the teva, the boat. And he said that the word teva also means word, meaning he was trying to perfect his prayer his whole life. And through his perfection of his prayer, he was able to continue the existence of the world. So we see here that even there was this concept. So for thousands of years, you see that this is the rectification of a person's soul, is the perfection of their prayer. So how do we give the tzaddik the ability to help us rectify? And we said that when we follow the tzaddik's eitzah, his advice, and we keep mitzvot, and we don't waste seed, as a result of this, we give the tzaddik the ability to help us reach full rectification. we're going to see that there's one specific thing called Bitul. That when we're able to consistently reach the state of Bitul, which we referred to in a prior lesson, what is the greatest way to reach Bitul? Which Rav Nachman says there's no other way to get to Bitul without this. See Bodedut, we're going to say in a second, is self-nullification, to nullify yourself completely. That through this self-nullification, you give the master of the field the greatest ability to rectify you. And this is the main reason why Rav Nachman used to tell his followers, make sure no matter what you are doing, you better do it every single day, not just because it's good for you, but the main reason it's good for you is because of what we're going to say today, and because of what we're going to say today, now I'm able to help you rectify more and more and more.
Rabbi, who's the master of the field? Is it Hashem or it's a...
No, the master of the field is the tzaddik of the generation.
Why is it the tzaddik? Why wouldn't we call him Hashem?
So Hashem is obviously the master of the field. He is the master of everything. But this is the analogy for the tzaddik Yesod Olam, because he plays a very important role in Rav Nachman's teachings. And you should know, Rav Nachman says, okay, but I'm saying he's not even the tzaddik.
But you can't worship him, but you...
It's not about worshiping him.
So how do you get
it's about attachment. It's about attachment to the master of what we're trying to accomplish. When you go to play in the NBA, so what would be the best case scenario? You play for Greg Popovich. Why? Should he be worshipped? No, but he's the best coach in the NBA. No. He's the best coach in the NBA. So if you want to learn basketball, you want to learn from the best coach. You play in football, you want to play for the Patriots. Why? Besides Brady, they have the best coach in the league. So you want to attach yourself to him. And who's the one who improves the most, the quickest, and the greatest? It's the one who attaches themselves the most to him. So Rav Nachman says, and the Zohar is very clear about this, that the degree to which you rectify is how much you're attached to that tzaddik. People go, oh, this is not Christianity. What is this that you worship? No, it's
reality.
It's not just a reality. It makes sense. The degree to which you attach yourself to the one who perfected himself, to that degree you could perfect yourself. But where are they getting it from? Kabbalistically, you have Yesod and Malchut. So the simple Jewish souls, all of us, we're called Malchut, and the tzaddik of the generation, he's called Yesod. And they need each other in order to rectify the world.
Like Boaz and Ruth.
Yes, like Boaz and Ruth. So Rav Nachman says, what's the goal? The goal is to get you to unity, to be able to see unity, to be able to see oneness. He says the reason why when we go through physical suffering, emotional suffering, the nature of man is to instinctively close his eyes.
Or is it because of pain?
And this alleviates his pain. Why is that alleviating your pain when you're closing your eyes? So Rav Nachman says it's actually a soul reflex. Why is it a soul reflex?
You don't see unity.
You like that? Soul reflex?
I don't think you don't see the unity.
You do see the unity. When do you say Shema Yisrael, which is the attestament to the unity of the world and the God?
9 in the morning.
Close your eyes. What you see in your life is causing you pain. When you close, because what you see is a lie. But when you close your eye, you can attach yourself to the truth, which is in the future, which is Olam Haba, which is Gan Eden, which is the field, which is the place of complete unity. And by closing your eyes when you're in pain, Hashem made it that you're able to quickly attach yourself to that future oneness. And through that, your pain is diminished. So Nachman says that physical reality of your instinct is hinting to a very great spiritual reality, and therefore we should be always closing our eyes to this world, because this world is a lie. So like this.
What happened when you open it again? The problem is still there.
That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Very good. What happens when a person experiences this unity, so his suffering leaves him and he feels real joy because he's connected to the source of reality. This is what we said in the past class. Now we're going to move forward. This is Dalit of the Torah, so I want you to focus very, very closely. I'm going to do my best to explain this. V'hinei be'emet. Behold, in truth, B'sha'at bitul, at the moment of bitul, shenit batel el tachlit, when you nullify yourself to the purpose of your life, which is that in the end everything is good, and that right now everything that's happening to you is also good because it's bringing you to that end. Not because the suffering itself feels good, it doesn't. He's not saying that that's not a reality, you don't feel pain. But he's saying that when you understand that that pain is bringing you to the ultimate good, it's good. That state, when you become totally absorbed in Hashem's oneness, then your suffering is genuinely nullified. Where do we say that a person is able to attain Bitul from? So we said through Hibodedut. When you do Hibodedut, which is you alone, what's the purpose of Hibodedut? You go alone to speak to Hashem. Why? Because you're for an hour, you are trying to nullify your physical reality. And in that nullification of your physical reality, you are trying to unify with the one unity. What happens when you come back from that, we're going to talk about right now.
That's the concept of, but you open your eyes again.
Right.
You go back into the real world.
Right. Rav Natan said to Rav Nachman, it's an amazing idea. You're saying that whenever we're suffering, we should just we should nullify ourselves. So he says, how do you do that? Rav Nachman said it's very simple. You close your eyes and you close your mouth, and it's like you're nothing. Okay, so what do you do when you open your eyes again? So we're going to see in a moment what that is. Now, he says, however, Azai be'emet, it's impossible to stay in this state of kulo echad, that everything is one, kulo tov, and that everything is good. Azai be'emet, because in truth, nitbadlin ha'yisurim, when you nullify all of the yisurim, all of the suffering, it's impossible to stay in the state of bitul. We're not made for this. We were never made to stay in this state, because obviously you wouldn't have a family, you wouldn't have friends, you wouldn't have a job. You're not supposed to remain in the state of bitul. You're supposed to be able to access it.
That's the question.
We don't have questions till the end, okay?
Whoa.
Ki im can, at the end, Ki im can yetzei migeder enoshi, because Rav Nachman says in truth you're moving beyond the state of human experience. When you attain bitul, you're moving beyond the natural state of human existence, and you're not supposed to stay. Yeah, you're not supposed to stay in that state. And therefore, muchrach, you're forced. You are forced to go into a state of what's called Vatzol V'shov, to run and to return. We know that the prophets had visions of the Malachim, and they were always running and returning. So Rav Nachman and in Chassidut, they talk a lot about this concept of running and returning. Running is the state of Bitul. You're running towards complete unity. You're running towards nullification of self. Shov, to return, is to come back, but with a higher perception. And that's what we're going to speak about in a moment. When you come back, you're not the same anymore. Just like Shabbat. Just like Shabbat. If you guys have ever done Shabbat right, you'll notice you feel a higher consciousness on Shabbat. Everybody feels this. When you are pure. If you're not, and you're wasting seed during the week and you're doing certain things, you may not feel that consciousness. But you definitely feel it otherwise, and you don't have to be a very great tzaddik to experience this. Anybody can. When your week comes back in, you feel like something leaves you. You actually feel like a sadness. There's a heaviness that comes with that. But you're not the same. Something changed. So that state of Shabbat is the state of Hibodedut, because it's drawing towards the future of Olam Haba and Gan Eden. Now I want to show you what happens. Your soul comes down into this world, but we learn that before it does, the Zohar says it goes to this field, which is called Malchut. So let's picture your soul as this dot. Your soul enters this cosmic supernal field. On this field you have grass, and you have trees. Some of the trees are bigger than other trees. And there is a master of this field, and he is tending to the field. And your soul comes down here. Why? So that it can be given birth to. Then, if you merit it, meaning if other Jews are doing mitzvot, people are praying for your rectification, you have the scoop to come down into this physical world. But when you come down to this world, this point, what's this point called? This point is called Attain. No thingness. In the teachings of Chassidus, this is your nefesh elokit, your godly soul. When you come down to this world, your piece of iron, your nefesh elokit, your godly soul, is then given something called yesh, or a goof, a body. But your physical body is just one aspect of the yesh that you have. You have myriads and myriads of levels now of Hitzonius.
What is a plutonium?
Like an onion.
Exterior.
Like an onion. What is your job in this world? You have free will. The whole reason why Hashem did this. Why wouldn't He just make you as you are? I am nothingness. And then you can connect to the ultimate nothingness. No problems. The answer is because this affords you free will. By having all of these layers around you, you have free will to choose. What do you have the free will to choose? What is your main choice? Your main choice is, do I want to connect and attach myself to my onion-like self and all of the peels on the outside? Or do I want to work, which is harder, and it does not come naturally, to nullifying and shedding these peels and connecting and attaching myself to my godly soul? That's ayin versus yesh. How did Hashem create the world? He created the world yesh and ayin. Somethingness from nothingness.
Which is a bugged out concept.
And what is our job as Jews? Our job is something unbelievable. We are supposed to go from somethingness to nothingness. The opposite. Back the other way. Rav Nachman taught us in this lesson something unbelievable. The more that you connect to your natural yesh, somethingness, or the somethingness of the world, you suffer. So who's suffering the most in the world? The one who's the most connected to the physical reality. Who is the one who's suffering the least? The one who is working every day to strengthen his attachment to his inner self, which is his real self, which is his state of ayin, nothingness. Not that you're nothing, but you're not a thing. You're no thing. No thingness. And this makes you unlimited. That point, the only reason I describe it as a small point is because there's no way to describe it. It's not really a point. It's actually infinite because it's a piece of God is infinite. We are trying to connect to that infinity, but that infinity is hidden within us, and this is one of the greatest mysteries of the world. How within you have something that's infinite. However, when a person comes to this world, he naturally connects to what's finite, what's limited. And the whole, it's an interesting thing. The whole generation, you'll notice, we have physically everything that we need. Food, drinks, clothing. Every physical thing that you need, you have in abundance now. We used to need this. For thousands of years, we needed to accrue these things. Now, they're right outside your door. You have them whenever you want. They come very naturally to you. So what happens to us? Now we already have it. So if you don't know about this point of ayin within you and you don't have teachings about how to connect to it, what are you going to do? You're going to attach yourself more and more to the somethingness. More and more and more and more. So what do you get? You have very fancy cars. You have very beautiful houses. You have life of materialism. And you see, where is the most materialistic society in the world? It's America. And where is the most materialistic place within that society? It's New York. And where is the most materialistic place within New York? It's New York City. Home to us.
City never sleeps.
Where is the highest rate of depression and anxiety? It's right here. It's It's right here. Why? They'll tell you it's because they're missing meaning in their life. They'll tell you it's because they're stressed out from their job. They'll tell you it's because X, Y, and Z. Rav Nachman said that's not why they're suffering. Because they're attaching themselves in a very intense way to something which is to some extent it doesn't really exist. And because you're continually attaching yourself to that and building a life based off of that, you feel tremendous, tremendous suffering. More and more and more. What happens when you do Bitul, when you have self-nullification, when you nullify yourself, which we say we do through Bodhidut? So every time you do it, you're not the same. Why? Because another peel gets eliminated. Another peel comes off. And you feel closer to your real self. However, you have many, many, many peels. So, Benny, stay for this because I want to say something. I have a chidush that I want to make, which came after my Bodhidut today. I had a few beautiful chidushim that Hashem gave me as a gift, and you'll see how it's very connected with our Torah lesson. That concept. We have a growing epidemic of people who are taking harmful substances to experience something outside of their own normal, painful reality. Ecstasy, shrooms, acid, right? You guys know the whole reason I'm sitting here is because I was one of those people. Sure, yeah, marijuana as well. Alcohol, everything. Now, what are a lot of religious people going to say? These people are way off, and there's something wrong with them. I think the opposite. I have a very strong feeling, based on this Torah, that despite the fact that the world is going to say that they're engaged in what's called escapism in psychology, meaning I'm trying to escape my reality, I want to say that maybe, since our attachment as a society is to yesh, is to somethingness, food, sex, materialism, and it's grown to such an extreme, therefore the degree to which we have yesh, which is the most there's ever been, is the degree to which there's been suffering, which is the most there's ever been. Therefore, deep down, when they go to drink or to do drugs or to do something to experience a life that's not theirs,
They're really looking for isn't this, but it's something that's above them.
they're looking for ayin. They're looking for nothing. They're looking to experience their real self. They don't want to suffer anymore. But their suffering is not coming from the stress of their job. It's coming from all of these onion peels. And by taking drugs, so to speak, to some extent, even though it's harmful, they're experiencing a nullification of their self. That's what happens. When you get drunk, you're not as nervous. Your inhibitions go down. When you take certain drugs that make you have visions and things like this, you're completely in an out-of-body experience. You're not there anymore. Everybody wants that. Everybody craves that. In our generation, this is more than ever. And I want to say that maybe these people have very, very, very great souls. And we shouldn't look at it, there's something wrong with them, but we should see that there's a great potential for these people. And you know where there's proof of this? When the Lubavitcher Rebbe came from Eastern Europe to America, and he moved to New York, his Hasidim came to him and told him, you're not going to believe, there's a whole group of secular Jews, they're called hippies. They go to concerts, they don't wear clothes, they take crazy drugs, and they're all into being one, and they're all into out-of-body experiences. What do we do with these people? And the Lubavitcher Rebbe told them, you should make it your business to do as much as you can to help these people come close to Hashem. They're very, very special souls. See? Why? Because they want to experience nothingness.
They're just doing the wrong form.
They just don't know that there's
They're not guided.
yeah, they're not guided, they don't know any better. So that's our whole generation. Also, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he brings a Torah that in the end, what's the Beit HaMikdash built? It's built with this wood, and this wood, the literal interpretation of it is like crazy wood. I can't think of the Hebrew word for it.
Shittim?
Yeah, shittim.
It's like wood
Yeah,
chocolate.
right. Yeah. So Lubavitcher Rebbe says it really means crazy wood, meaning who builds the Beit HaMikdash in the end? It's all the crazy Jews. So I want to say those crazy Jews are us. Yeah. I want to say this crazy details. Okay, so that was one Kiddush that I had. Now, Ratzov V'Shov, what we want to be doing is constantly moving inside and outside, running and returning. What's the running? The running is going towards the ultimate unity, which is that point inside of yourself. Even if only for a short amount of time during your day, hopefully 1 hour. When you're done, you're going to notice you're going to feel different. Rav Nachman says like this: when the conscious mind returns from the state of self-transcendence that you experience within your Yibodedut, and you return to what he says is called your brain or your natural state of consciousness, he says the mentalities or the vessels are unable to hold this higher consciousness in a self-transcendent state. So what is he saying? He's saying like this: you do Ibodedut. You nullify yourself to your physical reality by connecting to the ultimate unity. When you do this, when you come back, are you coming back with what you had? So you're going to come back with the reshimu of what you had, an impression of what you had. Why only an impression? Why can't you stay in that state? And the answer is because for that hour you actually went above your mind. So when you come back to your mind can't hold that light because it's above your mind. So it only gets an impression from that light, but that impression is very important. Why is that? This is because the higher consciousness, which is really connected to the Ein Sof, the endless one, is the aspect of the ultimate goal. Entirely one, entirely good. We said yesterday that what is goodness? It's oneness. When you nullify yourself, you're attaching yourself to the one. Now, the very interesting thing, you're going to say this is very, very this is very psychedelic, or you might say that this is for the spiritually elite. Our simple people like us going to be doing this. If you open up the Shulchan Aruch, which is the code of law for all of us, and you look at when he speaks about tefillah, he says very clearly there that the ultimate ideal state of prayer for every Jew is to come to a state of hipashtut hagashmiut, which means to nullify your physicality. This is the ultimate state in which every Jew should be praying. The Gemara says that an hour before they used to pray thousands of years ago, they used to meditate. And what were they meditating on? Nullifying themselves. They were getting themselves into a state of Bitul before they prayed every single time. It's one thing. Hipashtut igashmiut. Their whole way was to try it. Yeah, of course. It's the ultimate form of meditation. So this is a very big misconception. Meditation does not mean very deep machshava. Meditate means that you're concentrating on something and that's what you're thinking about. If you are trying to focus on one thing and that's what you're thinking about, that's called meditation. What are you trying to focus on in your hipodedut? The end goal. That goal is ultimate unity, ultimate oneness. So that's called meditation for sure. Now, you should know, what happens though when you come back is that you end up feeling more pain than before you went into the meditation, before you went into the hibodedut, which is interesting. You would think you come back, you feel relieved. He's saying no. When you come back with this higher consciousness of unity, of oneness, that everything is good, so that when you open your eyes again, you actually suffer initially much more. Why is that? The answer is because you have now a contrast that's going on. You're bringing back your consciousness from above and you're meshing it in with your lower consciousness now, and it's not able to hold it. So initially you feel a certain amount of pain. The brain feels the pain of the suffering, and since it is in the brain that all the sensations of pain and torment are primarily felt, right? When you hurt yourself, let's say I punch Daniel in the arm. So where is the pain coming from? It's not coming from his arm. It's coming from his neurons that are shooting off in his brain from
Sensory system.
what happened in his arm.
Okay, doctor.
I give you a couple more minutes.
I'm reading exactly what he said.
Hebrew says something.
As a result, the brain feels all of the suffering. Since it is in the brain that the sensations of the brain and the torment are primarily felt, then these neural passages extend from the brain to all the limbs, which the brain senses the pain in whatever limb it's located. And then know that afterwards, when one's consciousness returns from the state of self-transcendence to these vessels called the mochin, the mind, namely the mentalities, then the suffering becomes even more intense than before.
So
Okay.
That's why people
Why?
raise and
I think so.
I didn't get that.
Okay. He says it's like two people fighting and they're wrestling with one another. When one sees the other is gaining the upper hand, he musters greater strength and he attacks even harder. Similarly, when the powers of judgment, meaning Satan, sees that you're experiencing the ultimate good, which he knows is the beginning of tshuva, he gets very concerned about it. He can't touch you when you're with Hashem, so when you come back down, he makes there to be an intensity of suffering that you go through. This is actually part of the deeper reason why when a person becomes Baal Tshuva, he starts to experience many more difficulties than prior to it, because Satan is worried about you. And as a result of him being worried about you, he gives you more problems to deal with. And on a smaller level, it happens every single time you do hipodidut. Every single time that you try and nullify yourself, when you come back, you have an initial spurt of suffering which is greater than before. Similarly, when the powers of judgment see that a person wants to overcome his suffering and nullifies it through his absorption in the ultimate goal, right, the tachlit, which is Olam Haba, Gan Eden, everything is good, everything is one, then they muster greater strength and they attack even harder. Thus, later on, when you return from this state, the suffering is even greater than before. This is because the powers of judgment intensify their fight against him because he wants to escape from them. He knows, Satan, that his worst enemy is ayin, nothingness. Because in that state, he has no dominion. He's not in that place. Because you cannot suffer when you're with the ultimate one, with oneness, with unity. This is the reason why, what does Mashiach bring to us? Oneness.
In essence, that.
According to Kabbalah, Mashiach is the one soul which derives from the world of Adam Kadmon, which is where Keter, the highest level of your soul, comes from. His whole soul comes from. So what is that place? It's called Keter. And what is Keter? It's the Ein Sof. It's self-transcendence.
It's Ratzon?
It's self-nullification. It's will. It's pure will. So when he comes, what is he teaching us? He's teaching us how to do Bitul. That's his whole avoda, is to teach us how to nullify ourselves naturally, without drugs. I want to tell you another chidush I have. He's saying like this: first, you reach the state of nothingness, right? This is Bitul, this is the goal. By having this, you connect to unity, and then your suffering goes away, but then you come back, and then it disappears for a moment. But then you're left with an impression of it. According to our sages, there's a very interesting tradition that when Mashiach arrives on the scene, it's not what people think. He's not going to come, and that's it. According to tradition, he's going to come, he's going to reveal himself, and then he's going to disappear. And nobody's going to know where he is for a period of time. And then he's going to come back. Now, I want to say something interesting. You have the same exact experience on a micro level every single time you do Hipodidut. When you do Hipodidut, you're trying to connect to nothingness, right? Ayin. That's where Mashiach's soul comes from. That's, so to speak, like Mashiach revealing himself to you. By you experiencing unity, nothingness. And that's what he teaches us. And then as soon as you taste it, he leaves. Just like that perspective of reality also leaves you as soon as you open your eyes.
Just like Eliyahu Navi.
Yeah.
And then
he comes back. So this is our goal. Our goal is Bitul, because Bitul connects you to your innermost self, which is complete unity, oneness, goodness, truth.
When he leaves, what are you supposed to do when he leaves?
One second, not questions here.
Look for him.
So what do you do after, when the suffering picks up, when you come back from the state of Bitul? Rav Nachman says, Ach achar kach makilim hayisurim umit nachamin aleihem. However, when the suffering is lightened and one is consoled, how? Ayadei hitchadshut haTorah, by making chidushim in the Torah. when you come back from your Bitul, when you do Hitbodedut well, you're going to notice you're going to have new perceptions that come to you. Deep perceptions of things that happen to you in your life. You're going to have new perceptions of the things that are going on to you. That's called Hidushei Torah. When you have this Hidush and you experience it, this nullifies the suffering that comes from coming back to your normal state of consciousness. Is everybody with me? I know this is like deeper stuff, but do you understand what we're talking about to some extent? You're going through a process of nullification of self. I'll give you an example. What are we trying to do every day? It's like a seed. When I have a seed, okay, and I plant it in the ground, I have a kernel. That kernel has a germ of wheat in it, let's say. That a kernel is like, popcorn? Before it pops, it's in a kernel. But inside of that is a germ of corn. The outside is the kernel, needs to pop, it needs to come off. Shell.
Okay.
So too, every day, what happens in the ground when you plant these plants? So what happens is the kernel, which is the outside of the self, it completely disintegrates. Yes, becomes Bitul. And at the moment it disintegrates, then what's inside of it starts to grow. And what it grows in is much bigger than that initial state of the self. So too, this is what we're trying to do. When you do Hitbodedut, it's like you're planting yourself in the ground and you're eliminating the shell on the outside. And when you eliminate the shell on the outside, so what happens is you're able to grow much bigger than before it, because the outside is limiting you, it's constricting you. We want to go into the microwave and have the popcorn pop.
So, in the beginning, we're a kernel, and then you become like general?
Yes, that's the reason why it's so painful to come close to Hashem. Because the only way to be close to Hashem is to completely remove that outside of ourselves. And up to this point in your life, all we have connected ourselves to is that outside of ourselves. And that's why it's so painful. How do we temper the pain? Because we want to come close to Hashem. Hashem wants us to come close to Him. The end is good. So how do we get through that difficulty? And the answer is Torah. The Torah is what nullifies the pain. This is because the suffering brings one to this state of self-transcendence. We said before that when a person suffers, he closes his eyes, and this brings him to the ultimate unity. Or you can choose to, meaning you can just nullify yourself. Either way, you're going to get there.
Hashem's going to push you there, or you do it on your own?
Then afterwards, when you come back, a trace from that state remains. And this produces enhanced consciousness of Torah. The reason for this is that one is in the state of self-transcendence. He's totally absorbed in the ultimate goal. And in that place, he realizes that everything is good. One of the ways you'll know you have a good Hitbodedut is if you come to the realization that everything is one. That all of your suffering is really for the good. That everything that Hashem is doing to you in your life, from the beginning into the end, is only in order to bring you close to Hashem. And in that sense, it's good. So if you do that, that's good Hitbodedut. And when you come to that state of understanding, of unity, then when you come back down, you're now able to attain higher levels of Torah. And this makes you happy. What makes a person happy? Truth. And what's truth? Torah. And what's the Torah? It's the unity of God. Joy is the vessel for receiving enhanced Torah insights. The Arizal said, how do I attain all of the Torah that I knew? It wasn't because of all my Kabbalistic information. I got all that Kabbalistic information from being happy, he said. By being happy while doing the mitzvot, I attained all of my higher level of Torah insights. I was very happy. So you see that joy, so to speak, is the vessel to experience these higher levels of Torah. And where does the joy come from? It comes from Bitul. By nullifying yourself, you achieve unity of your life, of the world. You feel connected to. How do you know when you're praying that you had a good prayer? If you're not aware of your surroundings. When you do the Amidah, how do I know that I prayed a good Amidah? If while you're praying, you lose sight of the fact that everybody is surrounding you while you pray. If you are aware of the fact that everybody is surrounding you and you don't feel like yourself and you don't feel connected, That's not the best prayer. Rav Nachman's goal is to get you to the point that every time that you pray, you enter into the state of ayin, not just when you do it. Every time you pray, you should be able to get to this place that you're connecting to nothingness, to ayin, to Hashem. And in that place, you are able to experience unity so that when you open your eyes back up again, you're able to experience the good, and that makes you happy. And this joy allows you to achieve more Torah insights.
I've done in the Shiva, I used to know the Shemona by heart.
Yeah.
Close my eyes.
When I do Ibodedut, I always close my eyes. It's very powerful. To close your eyes for an hour and to talk to Hashem, Mom, if something changes for you.
You don't have to close your eyes.
You don't have to. But you completely lose, you lose that shell, like the popcorn. You don't feel.
Or closed eyes?
I do it closed eyes.
Better sitting. Standing or sitting?
I do it standing and sitting. If
Well,
I'm,
you go to this
Walk
for
or
me.
you...
and sometimes I walk.
You go to this?
Yeah.
You go to this.
If it's dangerous, then obviously it's not a good idea. But if you have a large space, you could. But if you don't feel comfortable, you can keep your eyes open. But for me, it helps me reach Bitul much easier if I don't see my surroundings, because then I can much easier nullify myself and forget about myself. And that's the goal. Every single time you're supposed to be trying to get yourself to a point like that popcorn shell. You want to remove the shell so that the inside pops out. This happens through the Hibodedut. This is Bitul. Now, at the time that the Jewish people received the Torah, they said, "We will do and we will hear." What happened as a result of this? So the Gemara says that 600,000 malachim, angels, came down and gave them 2 crowns each.
Jews?
Yes. One for Naaseh and one for Nishma. And with this, they reached complete connection to the unity of God. They had complete attachment to the oneness of God. And that's why it said that we were like one man with one heart. We didn't have our external selves anymore. That's the reason why we died. Because you can't stay in that space. What ended up happening? You come back to reality, Cheta Ego. And because you're not holding by that consciousness anymore, it can be very damaging.
But if you don't have a leader,
Right.
meaning if you don't have the Moshe Rabbeinu, it could be very damaging. If he was there, theoretically, they wouldn't have done that.
No. And what happened as a result? Destructive angels came down and took each one of them. How many destructive angels were there? Double the amount of the ones that came down originally. 1.2 million. Why? Why was there 600,000 that came down and gave 2 each? And why was there now 1.2 million that came down and took 1 each? So I had a chidush that it's because they have no connection to unity whatsoever. They are not capable of understanding that a person can have 2 crowns at one time. That he's able to make sense of Naaseh and Nishma. Right? So what happens is the Malachim each have to come down one by one and take your crown, because they don't chop unity. That's what it means as destructive angels. That's what the Sitra Achra is. It's trying to get you to separate yourself from God.
Wow. And that's what Malchut is. Malchut unifies everything. And that's what goes after Malchut, which is Yeshua.
Right. Very good. But in the future, what's going to happen? The Torah teaches in the future, Yeshaya says that in the end, B'simchat olam al rosham, happiness is going to ascend on their heads.
We're going to get him back, baby.
We're going to get the crowns back.
We're getting them back.
We're getting the crowns back. Where do those crowns go? So the Gemara said that those crowns, even though they were taken away, they weren't destroyed. Where were they taken to? Emotion. They were all hidden on Moshe. All 600,000 crowns. Mashiach. And he's going to come back. He's going to come back and he's going to reveal how to get these crowns back on our head. And then we're going to be happy. That's why Mashiach, the letters are Simcha. Flip them around. Because he is going to reveal happiness in the world. Where is his happiness coming from? His happiness is coming from Bitul. It's coming from self-nullification. Because he is so nullifying himself and connecting to Hashem, he has no concept of self anymore. He's going to be the most humble man who ever lived. Why? Because he has no ego. And this is what he's teaching us. You can achieve the same level of oneness and unity with the universe by simply nullifying your ego that you can by taking ecstasy. This is what Mashiach is going to be revealing to us.
I know that thing, the oneness thing.
And it is through this enhanced insight into Torah which one merits from that trace, that little Rishimu, that impression that you have when you come back from Bitul. And through this, the suffering is alleviated. Now, where is the suffering coming from? He said the reason for this is that your soul, once you come back, it now thirsts for Torah. Because Torah is your taste into that unity again. So when you come back from Bitul, your soul is desiring and it's very, very thirsty for Torah. That's what it said at the end, there's going to be a famine for Torah. We're going to be very, very thirsty for Torah because we want to connect to this unity. And this soul's thirst corresponds to suffering. Like it says, salt makes one thirsty. And so too, salt is the aspect of suffering. Or what we learned before, salt makes you happy. So which one is it? The answer is what we said. That if you connect yourself to the holy version of salt, which is the tzaddik of the generation, so he helps you nullify your ego through his teachings. And then it's pleasant, and you're happy from it, and you feel good about it. However, if you don't, Hashem still loves you, He still cares about you, He still wants you to get to this point of nullification of ego. How does He do it? He salts you through difficulties. What happens when you put salt on meat?
It dries up. No, it takes the blood.
It draws out the blood, which according to Kabbalah, the blood is the Yetzer Hara. The salt is drawing it out. And it also makes your meat very, very soft. Meaning you're easily able to connect to something beyond yourself, to penetrate that outer shell.
No, isn't meat softer with the water in it?
No, that's the reason why they age meat for a very long time with salt, because it's very, very soft. Now, it says like this: the soul is the daughter of the intellect. Something very interesting. The soul is the daughter of the intellect. This is because one's soul is raised primarily by his mind, which nurtures and improves it as it's raised. So what are we talking about now? There's different levels of your soul. The higher level of your soul is called the moach, the mind. The lower level of your soul is called the nefesh, which we learned is your speech. Now, what our goal in our lifetime is to have our mind guide our speech. And therefore, when you perfect your mind and you make it pure, your speech becomes more pure and perfected. That's why the tzaddik is the one who is able to perfect your speech, because he has the unblemished mind. And where does the unblemished mind come from? We learned before, from not wasting seed. And because the tzaddik is the master of the Brit, so he has a perfect, unblemished mind. Because he has a perfect, unblemished mind, he's able to get us to perfect our speech, which is our soul. So he's saying, who raises the soul? It's the intellect. In this case, it's the tzaddik. But even within us, you have this aspect. You have your mind, which is raising your soul. So to the degree that your mind is pure, to that degree, your speech can be perfect. And this perfection of speech leads to complete rectification for yourself and geula in your life. This is why it says in Mishlei, it's not good for the soul to be without da'at. Meaning, it's not good for speech to be without consciousness.
The man to be alone is no good.
Yes.
What?
There's another famous saying that's not good for man to be alone, which Benny is connecting, which I also had this thought. Shlomo Melech is saying it's not good for the soul, meaning the lower soul, the female aspect of the soul's speech, to be without da'at, which is the male aspect of the soul. So he's connecting it to the beginning when it says it's not good for man to be alone, man and woman have to be together, meaning the higher soul and the lower soul, the intellect and speech. They need to be together. Now when the intellect is perfected, the soul bears fruit. What's the reason why your tefillah isn't getting answered? So we said it's because you have not perfected your brit. So we should have a question though. Why should it be that my speech and my tefillah is only dependent on my mastery of my brit? It's one specific thing. Why should it affect my ability to get my prayers answered? And the answer is that not all speech is called speech. Rav Nachman says speech that's not answered is not speech. So therefore, when you are speaking and you're not being heard, that's not called speech. When you are praying and you're not being answered, that may not be called speech.
What is that called? It's called wasted seed.
So what happens? Why is a person not able to get his speech answered? Because his speech is not coming from a place of truth. Because truth comes from a perfect mind. So it goes like this. You blemish your seed. When you blemish your seed, your mind becomes blemished. And then when you go to pray, so later on in Likutey Moharan, Rav Nachman says that all of your prayers get trapped by the other side. They don't get answered. Now ultimately, when you perfect it, and you work on it, so all of those prayers that got trapped, they all get vomited out. And you can get a lot of prayers answered at one time, which a lot of people have experienced. Like you don't get your prayers answered for a very long time, and all of a sudden, a lot of things happen at once. The answer is because the Sitra Achra is always going for your speech. And when you're wasting seed, automatically, says the Zohar, your speech gets eaten up. We're going to have to go to later that maybe I shouldn't be praying. Rav Nachman says, no, you should still be praying. But it's an interesting concept, because what would you think? So I would think that if I'm wasting seed, my speech is getting eaten up by the other side, it's working against me, it's not helping me, so why should I? So that's for later. For now, we're saying you should be praying. But it does take those prayers when you're not shmirat habrit. So for your soul to bear fruit, meaning for your speech to bear fruit, for your prayers to get answered, you must perfect your intellect. And when one's intellect is blemished, then it's like Tehillim says, Eretz pri limlecha. A fruitful land becomes a salty waste. This saltiness is the suffering a person experiences when his mind is imperfect. Because what did we say before? Rav Nachman taught that all suffering comes from a lack of da'at. And where does da'at come from? It comes from shmirat habrit. And this corresponds to the thirst of the soul.
Because it's the revelation of that. The Yisod is revealing that.
Into Torah, when you have new insights in Torah, you'll notice sometimes you're having a very bad day. You come to the class and you feel much better after. Why? You shouldn't feel better after class. Your life didn't change. Everything's the same out there. And the answer is because you are getting a new insight in Torah, this alleviates suffering. Because suffering comes from a lack of da'at. So when you get enhanced da'at, so your suffering leaves. And that's why it says, let all who are thirsty come to the water. Meaning, all who are suffering, come learn Torah. And this is the meaning of happy is the man, like it says in Tehillim, Ashrei Gever Asher Tiasreinu. Benny had a question. Benny asked, if everything is good because everything comes from Hashem, then why should I even pray for anything to change? So Rav Natan's going to answer that question. But you're going to see that there's suffering even for the person that he knows all of the unity and he has a perfect mind, because tzaddikim also suffer. So this is the Tehillim that explains that. Happy is the man, or fortunate is the man that is being chastised by Hashem, umitoratecha telamdenu, who you personally instruct in your Torah. So you see here the deep secret in this Tehillim. David HaMelech is saying, happy is the person who's getting chastised by Hashem, meaning he's causing him suffering in his life. Why? Because that suffering is going to bring him to Bitul, and through Bitul he's going to have greater insights into Torah knowledge. So that's what David HaMelech is saying. So he says, Ashrei. So that,
because ultimately this is for your benefit because it brings you to Bitul.
Right. And the Bitul brings you to Torah. Exactly. Through the suffering, one merits enhanced insight into Torah. And when a person has higher Torah insights, it is a sign that he has achieved something beneficial from his afflictions. So Nachman is saying something very, very important here. How do I know that my suffering is for the good? Meaning I got something from it. He says if you end up coming from it with deeper insight into your life, it's good. If you don't ultimately come out of it with deeper insight into reality, into your life, into Torah, so to speak, it's not yet good. You need to work towards it.
But theoretically, a person can live all his life with these signs happening to him and just
So wait. It's a sign that by means of the suffering is attained the total state of absorption in the ultimate goal, and whose trace has made him worthy of enhanced insights. Okay. So we said a lot today. There's more to say. I didn't want to move on though until I want to make sure you guys understand what we're talking about. So we have a process like this. Your soul comes down into this world. Your nefesh al-ki is your aspect of ayin, no thingness. Why do we suffer in our life? Because we forgot about Him. And because we forgot about Him, we don't feel Him. Because He's a very still, small voice. And if you don't actively try to attach yourself to Him, you only feel the peals of the outside. And the peals hurt. Why do they hurt? Because they're limited. Because the peel is limited, you're going to achieve only suffering by connecting yourself to it. That's why you see that most Balei Tshuva in our generation, they're not coming to Torah because their life is great. They're coming to Torah because they have achieved material success and it's not making them feel full. Because they have achieved material success where other generations did not, and therefore they could chase and chase and chase, but they never got it, so they don't really know what makes them happy. Many people that I know that became Balei Tshuva, they went to great schools, they got great jobs, they made money, and they were very miserable. And as a result of that, they came to search for water. Why is that? Because suffering also brings you to the ultimate good. The Gemara says there's three things that you can only attain through suffering. One of them is Torah, and one of them is Eretz Yisrael. For later. What is Eretz Yisrael? It's Amunah. What is Torah? It's the perfected mind. These are the two elements. What raises what? The Torah brings you to perfect faith. Therefore, a person cannot pray alone and come to perfected faith, and he can't learn Torah alone and come to perfected faith. He needs both. Now, when you come down to this world, you go into a state of amnesia, and you forget about this little dot, and you think you're this. And everything in your life actually creates more and more of these. Because you're investing in it. It's like a system or a stock, and you continue to invest more and more and more in it. Until you can't take it anymore. Now we want to go from yesh to ayin. We want to go back to no thingness. We want to nullify these. How do we do this? We do this through Bitul. So our goal is Bitul. We learned in a prior Torah the only way to get to Bitul is through Yibodah. By the way, something very interesting. I noticed in this week's Parsha, when Balak is trying to get Bilam to curse us, he says, I can't do anything about that. He says, because they're boded with Hashem. So I wanted to say, maybe a Kiddush. Why didn't it say they're just with Hashem? They're together. Why say boded? They're alone with Hashem. And I think because when you're alone with Hashem, then you're protected from all negativity. Meaning, when you do Yibodah, you come to Bitul, then you're protected from all negativity. What happens when you do Bitul? So as a result of the Bitul, you experience Ein Sof, Ayin, Kol Tov, everything is good. But like Daniel said, you have to open your eyes and you have to come back from that Yibodah. So when you come back, what happens? So what happens is you actually have a little tiny increase in suffering, a pain. How do you alleviate that pain? By Torah. By learning Torah, you're going to notice that when you come to learn, or you may even just come out of your Yibodah with greater insight, when you come to learn Torah, you'll notice that your mind is more of a vehicle for the Torah, and you're able to understand more from it. This alleviates the suffering. And by learning this Torah, you come to a state of simcha, of happiness. And we should be doing this every day. Do we have any questions about what we're doing so far? These are the steps. Step 1, Bitul. You experience these. Then, when you wake up from that Bitul, so to speak, or when you actually go to sleep, so you suffer a little bit. And then you learn Torah. And if you do this every day, then every day you'll see another one of these peels will leave you. You'll become happier. Your prayers will get answered more and more. You will have more emunah. And you will become like Yosef Atzadik ben Parat. You'll become a fruitful bud. Until ultimately you want to get to the point that you're as connected to ayin as possible, and that is our tikkun. And this is where Mashiach's job is, to get us to this point. And we all connect to the point of nothingness.
Is there a way to get to that point without working hard? No, seriously. Like you're saying, you're removing one layer.
Right.
Is there a way to just penetrate all the way down?
No.
To no?
Why? Because Hashem made us corresponding to the moon. Just like the moon waxes and wanes,
Part of him.
just like the moon waxes and wanes, you need to ratzov v'shov. You need to run and return. That means that the moon has to grow periodically.
Why does the person himself need to run and return? Could it be that he's running and returning for people?
That's something different. We're talking about a spiritual mechanism called running and returning.
How do you know which is which?
So running is bitul, which you do actively.
No, I'm saying, how do you know if it's you that needs the purification or it's other people who need it?
You always need it. And you're only seeing that other people are suffering because you need more.
What is an Avera do?
And Avera is another one of these.
What if you get to that state and you do Averas? Like a person gets to that and he does Averas.
Can't get to
He'll never be able to get it. Like he does Bitul, he does Torah, and he's doing Averas at the same time.
So no, you can't do that. It doesn't work like that. The whole point of the Bitul is to get you to a point that your will and Hashem's will are one. You're nullifying yourself to Hashem. That's the ultimate goal. However, it's very hard to do that. It's hard to stop wasting seed. It's hard to stop doing things that I want to do for what Hashem wants to do. But the only reason it's hard because of all the shells. It's not because you don't really want to. You really want to. So you need to do Bitul. And by doing Bitul, it connects you to Hashem's Ratzon. If you come out of your Ibodadut wanting to do more Vera, you're not really doing Bitul.
But what kind of Torah specifically? Gemara? This is Gemara.
Any deeper Torah insights is going to bring you to happiness. Yeah.
So why is it that you only have one child, but whenever you AC, you have thousands?
So why do you always only end up coming out with one child?
When you waste seed, you have thought.
I don't waste it, so don't say nothing about me.
I'm saying not you, I'm saying the person.
So originally, we gave birth to many souls at one time. Because of the chet, we now only have, so to speak, one child at a time. Just like in your life, you can only come to, you can only grow periodically. It's the same concept.
Question.
Can't-
Do my
It's the same thing though. I don't think that's fair.
Tell Adam.
And we'll ask during the night, which is me. Anyway, I have a question. This just blew my mind. Gave me a serious insight just now. Before the cave versus after the cave. When Adam was Chal and the Zerah came out of it, you know how we said one semen has millions of potential lives. So wouldn't that be that before the Chet there was no such concept of separation? Therefore, that one seed was just one neshama. As opposed to now, when we have that one seed, it's 10 million
I don't
different
know.
seeds.
It's a leap. I'm not sure.
You know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
Because it's separating as opposed to unifying.
It's like I would have to see that. That's like a very specific theory. Yeah, also very deep.
They still go inside of
Any
her.
other questions?
They die inside of her.
Any other questions?
So you're saying that by us closing our eyes,
To the world.
we like
Nullify.
we feel better. We
You're gonna-
nullify ourselves, and then we feel better because we connected to Hashem.
Yes, which is your real self.
Right. But then after we open our eyes, then the pain
Then,
comes stronger.
Yes, initially.
Yeah. So for us to mitigate that pain, we have to learn Torah.
Yes, you got it.
Now, what's the concept of like running and coming back, like running and
So the running is the bitul. The running is nullifying yourself. That's the hypothesis. Closing the eyes.
okay.
The returning is when you open your eyes again. Now, Rav Natan says, so you would think that the main thing in life is running. But in fact, the main thing is returning. The running is only, the running, meaning the bitul, is only to bring that consciousness back to your normal self and to elevate it
Because the
over
so
and
you
over
turn everything.
and over.
So now we know that if we open our eyes, it's gonna be more harder
Yeah, initially.
Then, is there a way that we won't close our eyes? Is it like, okay, I have the da'at that if I close my eyes, it's gonna be, or the point is to close your eyes so you can get that insight?
Yes.
Okay. And now,
And you can't choose, like, it's not like if you don't, you're not going to go through difficulties. You're just going to go through difficulties in your life. You don't have a choice about it.
right, but what I'm saying is, why make it harder?
It's not making it harder, it's making it better. It's just, he's just trying to explain to you that there are certain steps within it, and you're going to notice from time to time that when you come back from it, you feel more pain. He's just trying to explain and map it out for you so you're not surprised and you understand why that is and what you need to do with it.
Another thing, when you say about our culture has the concept of Mashiach appearing, disappearing, and is that the culture, or is that on Torah?
No, this is a tradition, an oral
It's
tradition.
just tradition.
It's an oral tradition. It's not written in the Torah explicitly, but it's something that the sages say. And where do they learn it from? They learn it from Moshe. Because Moshe is the concept of Mashiach, and therefore everything he did in his life, so to speak, resembles what it'll be like for Mashiach. So too, Moshe first revealed himself. He brought us out of Egypt, and then he went missing for 40 days. And he came back. So the Mashiach will do the same thing.
So we got 40 days.
He's going to say later on in Likutey Moharan why is that people sometimes go missing, especially big tzaddikim.
Wow.
Oh, so you said that closing your eyes, a person closing his eyes is the concept of Bitul. Could it be that sometimes when a person closes his eyes, it harms him even more because now he's contemplating previous things that's happened to him, or just reminiscing?
Right, so that's not Bitul. That's
Right.
It's not physical closing. The whole point of closing the eyes means I'm closing my eyes to this world. That's what closing the eyes means. It means I'm shutting off.
I thought even on the physical level.
Also, but the essence of what he's trying to say is
Not the essence.
no. So I'm saying when you're closing your eyes, what he's saying is close your eyes to this world. Whatever's going on in your life, whether you're enjoying it, you're not enjoying it, you have pleasure, you have pain, whatever it is, this is temporary and this isn't reality. By keeping your eyes on reality, which is the end, which is the ultimate goal, which is only good and everything is only bringing you there, this is going to allow you to do everything you need to do in your life. However, if you are not able to, and you're not doing it, by not having your eye on the end, you suffer tremendously. It's like, for instance, it's like a guy goes on a race, right? If a guy is racing and he sees his goal, he's going to be motivated to continue running because he sees the end. But the guy who doesn't see the end, he just sees his foot in front of him. He's like, I could be taking a trillion of these steps, and you're not going to have the motivation to continue going, and you'll be completely lost. So Nachman says, keep your eye on the prize, have your eye on the goal. You know, very interestingly, when Abraham had people come over his house, he'd have them wash their feet. Why? Because they had dust on their feet, because they lived in the desert, and they used to worship the dust of their feet. Now, why do they worship the dust of their feet?
This is nothing.
The answer is because those people, Ishmael, they worshipped the moment. They worshipped not the end, but every moment that leads up to the end. Meaning that they... One second. Meaning, they weren't concerned about what took place, because whatever took place, they believed was Hashem's will, which we also believe that. But to the extent that they took away accountability for themselves. Because if I go blow up a building, obviously Hashem wanted that.
I get it.
If something takes, because they'll say if something takes place, then Hashem willed it into existence. So this can get very, very tricky, because Hashem told us He wants us to do certain things and not want to do other things. And at the same time, they're saying they're taking it to another
So they're
step.
living a paradoxical.
They're living in the state of every step of the journey is the goal.
Meaning wherever I'm at.
Wherever I'm at,
Wherever I'm at and I choose
that's
it,
it.
that's where God wants me to be. If I'm in the bathroom today, if I'm in the club tomorrow, God wanted me to be there.
That's the wrong.
No,
Yeah.
it's not a Jewish approach. Yeah. We want to get to the point that we're focusing on the end and drawing the end into the present. That's our goal. In a nutshell, you want to constantly be focused on Olam Haba, on a time when everything is warm, when everything is good, and drawing that consciousness into your present moment. And the more that you do this, the more that you become whole. And you start to be happier, and you start to believe more, and you're able to pray more effectively, and then learn Torah. All of these things. So that's the goal. We're going to talk more about this tomorrow. There's more things to be said. I hope that you're able to internalize what we're talking about. I would go back and listen again. I know it sounds very complicated, but it's actually very simple what we're talking about. Okay?
Right.
It's not easy, right? It's hard to do this. It's hard to work on yourself. But the concepts we're talking about are really not complicated. You come into this world and you're given an ego. The only way you connect to God and become happy is by connecting to your real self, which is the wheat inside the kernel. So we need to remove the kernel on the outside. And we can only do that through Bitul, and we can only do Bitul through Ipo to do. Right? Thank you guys.